doctor's report. The reason we do this for new patients is because it's probably your most important appointment. Which of you have been under chiropractic care in the past? You have.
For a short time.
For a short time. But nobody else. And for you, you probably weren't ever explained what the heck is going on. You probably were just told, lay on the table, crack, crack, pop, pop, and you're done, right? And that's what happens. So nobody really understands what's going on in the process. I am big on education. I think the more you know about how your healing process works, how your brain and nerve system works, the better decisions you're going to make. And so, and I'm also going to answer a lot of questions that are going on in your mind that you haven't even asked me yet. So by the time we're done, you're probably going to be like, oh, okay, that's why that does that. So when we start, we're going to start out by looking at how your body heals first, and then we're going to dig into the nerve system because, you know, when I was growing up, it was better living through better chemistry. Not for you guys, but for us, right? And, you know, we had the mercurochrome, the iodine, now it's the neosporin. If it's herbs, if you're into herbs, it's the echinacea golden seal. If it's the vitamins, it's the vitamin C, D and E, and all that stuff. And if you and all that stuff is good, but if you think that is what's healing, I'll ask you another question. If you cut your finger, what is it that you expect it to heal on its own, right? What is it that healed that finger? Right? Was it any of those things? You know, you could. Bye, Jay. Don't mind him. Because if you think it is something from the outside in, you know, take a piece of chicken when you go home or a piece of steak and put a cut in it. Put some neosporin on it. Give it a cortisone injection. Put an antibiotic in it. Wrap it up in a medicated Band-Aid, and tell me what it's going to heal. It's not going to heal, right? What's in your finger that is not in that piece of steak?
Circulation.
Okay, blood cells, but there's 3 top answers that patients usually give, and they're all wrong. That's the first one. Because you got blood in, now you said it a little differently, but it's not your blood. What else? What else? What's in your finger that's not in the steak?
Skin.
Skin? Yeah, there's skin on steak. Well, there's skin there, but it's not the skin. Skin doesn't do the healing. And you don't even want to venture a guess, do you?
No.
The top 3 answers are bone, blood, and nerve. And they're all in steak and chicken. All right, I'll give you another example. 2 guys are in a car accident. One's dead, the other's hurt real bad. Who's going to make it?
Hurt real bad.
It's not a trick question. Come on.
One is alive.
That's where healing comes from. It comes from what we call the life force. It's that spark of energy that starts up in and around the brain, comes down the brain stem and down the spinal cord, and comes out over all the nerves to every single part of your body. There's not a part of your body that does not have a nerve going to it. If we stripped away everything, your bones, your muscles, your organs, your skin, everything, except the nerve system, we'd still be able to recognize each other. That's how many nerves you have, right? And so that's where life comes from, right up in here. That's the stuff. Now, here's the thing, and another reason why I do this is because when you talk to people and you ask about chiropractic, most people think chiropractor, back and neck doctor, right? By the time you leave here tonight, you're going to realize it's really not about your back or your neck. It's what's on the inside here that we're trying to get to, because this is your most important master control system, and we don't want any interference to it. So, the very first question I get, by the way, innate intelligence, life force, mental impulse, nerve flow, they all mean the same thing. So you'll hear me interchange those. It's that intelligence in your brain that knows to tell your heart to speed up because you're running up the stairs, or to slow down because you're going to sleep, or to digest that dinner you just ate before you got here and make it into healthy tissue. You know, we don't have to think about that stuff. It's all controlled by your nerve system. So those are the things that we're working with here. Now, the very first question I get is, how did I get this way? You've heard me use the term subluxation, right? You've even said it, Guy, in the other room. You were great. You got it right the first time. And you've seen this picture up here, okay? That's the brainstem and the spinal cord. This is just an animation of a section of your spine, and it shows the nerves coming out from in between. These blue things are the discs, intervertebral discs. It's cushion, okay, in between the bones to make a hole to separate where the nerves come out, okay? So what happens when these bones go out of alignment, they actually they're wearing on that disc. And as that disc wears, it makes the hole smaller. In the meantime, it's wearing on that nerve, and a lot of times you don't feel it at all. So what happens is that wherever that nerve is going, it's like a road map. That life force is not getting there at 100%. So we have cells up here now at 100%. Subluxation happens. So maybe we drop down to 95%. Well, we know we can function at 90 or 95% and not even know it, right? But what we also know is that cells are regenerating every, I forget what the thing said, it was a little different than what I knew, but every 3 to 4 months, your heart is regenerating new cells, your stomach is regenerating new cells, things like that. So every 3 to 4 months now, we're regenerating new cells at a 5% deficit. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, it gets down here, what's going to happen? Boom! Something's wrong! Something's dying! Right? That's, what do we call that? A symptom, right? The symptom is the alarm. It's not the fire. It's the alarm going off, not the fire. We've become the world's most scientifically advanced alarm treaters on the planet, and they're right next door, right? But it does nothing for putting out the fire. What you're doing here is not only putting out the fire, but rebuilding the house, rebuilding the roof, okay? So that's kind of what we're working with here, and that's what gets in vertebral subluxation is one of the things that interferes with the way your body continues to stay healthy, because your innate intelligence wants you to be healthy. It will do everything it needs to keep you alive. For instance, if you're not getting enough calcium in your diet, it will take it from somewhere else because you need it for heart function and nerve function. Where will it take it from? Your bones, your storage place, right? That's how this innate intelligence works. It's going to do everything it can to keep you going. And that's why when people come in here and they're all the way down here, I'm like, oh man, this has been going on for a long time to get down there. Okay, so the most common question I get is, well, how did I get this way? I didn't do anything. Most people, think you have to have a physical trauma. Not always. It could be physical but repetitive, micro trauma. But there's also chemical stress on the nerve system, and there's also mental stress on the nerve system. All right, so let's talk about, by the way, who sits at a desk all day? Okay, see that guy? You see that guy?
That's me.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Do that for 30 years. What do you think? You think you might need an adjustment? Absolutely. All right, so now the very first subluxation, this is physical, the physical aspect. Can you all see this over there? Physical aspect, okay? Is during the birth process, okay? When the baby's head crowns, the doctor takes the head and pulls, turns, tilts, and pops the shoulder out. Turns, tilts, and pops the other shoulder out, right? You remember?
I do, yeah.
And so,
Thanks for bringing
you
it
remember?
up.
That was a long time ago. Anyway, those vertebrae right up at the top, they're not even fully formed yet. They're still soft, and they can become misaligned. And as the twig is bent, so grows the tree, right? So now, when a baby's born, he's not going to come out and say, Mommy, my neck hurts. But if you look around here, you see these pictures all over the place, and down here we've got 3 binders full of all these kids getting adjusted. And people ask me, like, what's wrong with those kids? Nothing. They're getting checked. I mean, yeah, there are some issues, but most of them they're getting checked to see if they have this. So with babies, newborns especially, they don't even wake up. It's nothing like what I do with you. Not even close. No cracking, popping, twisting. Let me see your arm. I use my pinky. It's a little, just like that. Hardly any pressure. Because their bones aren't even fully formed yet. They just glide back into place. They don't make any noise or anything. Most of the time they're asleep in my arms, or I lay them on Mom's chest. They get a little bit older. They become toddlers. He's adjusting a teddy bear here. Look how happy he is, right? And they love getting adjusted. One, it doesn't hurt. Two, you notice I don't wear a white coat for that very reason. I don't want them or you to have that stress the minute you see that coat. You know what I mean? So let's say they get a little bit older. Where am I? By the way, some things you might see with a newborn, if they are subluxated, are things like colic, chronic irritability, failure to thrive, only wanting to nurse on one side over the other, chronic ear infections, bronchial type things. Those are all upper cervical. If you've seen that, that's how you know to get them checked. Okay, so let's say we make it out of the hospital and now we're on the playground. 2.5 million kids go to the emergency room. These are CDC statistics for playground injuries every year. Do you think they might have a subluxation? Absolutely. What about the kids that don't go? Dad says just rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Right? Remember those days? So yeah, those are the kids that we see, and those are the kids you saw running out of here, right? You were like, that was quick. That was quick. Yeah, because at this point, it's like a little tweak. You know, and they either, if they're toddlers, they sit on my lap or they lay on the table, and it's like 2 minutes and they're done. But they're growing up straight and tall and clear in their nerve system, and they don't have to be here all the time. And, you know, it's better than waiting 30 years until they're their parents' age, and now they got disc degeneration. That's why we check kids. Not all chiropractors, by the way, check kids. I don't know if you knew that. We're board certified, and we've been doing it for a long time. We love taking care of kids. They don't complain. Anyway.
I beg to differ.
Oh yeah, you beg to differ, of course. Your mom, what do you mean? And then finally we become youth athletes, right? Welcome to East Cobb. This is the most competitive, Mom, this is one of the most competitive youth sports programs I have ever been in. You know, my kids did travel baseball and lacrosse and the whole bit, and I know. And back in our day, we played a sport, and when that sport was done, that season was done, you either played another sport or you played in a marching band or something, right? You did something else. Now, you do the same sport, 365 days out of the year. When the season's done, you're doing conditioning, and then you're going to camp all summer. And then you're in club league and travel ball and all this other stuff. So I don't know if you realize, but your spine does not fully ossify or harden your bones until you're 19 or 20 years old. We're putting helmets on kids at 4 years old, and they're taking these hits over and over and over and over again throughout their middle and high school careers. So that's why we check kids, to make sure. By the way, the coaches at Walton High School, they're patients here, and they send their teams in here to get checked. Not just for injuries, although sometimes they are injured, but most of the times because they know the difference between winning and losing is having some kid working on all cylinders at their peak potential, and that's what they do. I just had one of my patients. He plays for club league. He goes to Lassiter. He's a senior at Lassiter, and he plays for a club league. He's a baseball player. He's going to be in the MLB, no doubt in my mind. He came in today because tonight's their championship game. And he knew, I better get adjusted. Anyway, that's the way, we work with kids now, and then we become adults. And adults do all kinds of silly things, like carry big purses on our shoulders that are way too heavy, sit at computers like this. I'll tell you, I heard some of the funniest stories this whole past year with people working from home about where their workstations are. I'm not going to go into it because it's hilarious, but it's also like, are you kidding me? You're sitting where and doing your work? Anyway, but yeah, and I had so many upper back and neck stuff coming in because of that, people working from home. So you get the idea. That's the physical way that you can have your spine go out of alignment. Now let's talk about chemically, because your nervous system is directly affected by what you put into your body, what you eat into your body, drink into your body, and breathe into your body. So, a couple things. We all know we're not supposed to have food colorings, preservatives, and flavorings, right? We all know that. That's not healthy. One thing I want to bring your attention to is the chemical sweeteners. First of all, what does your body need for hydration?
Water.
Water, and lots of it, right? Soda, not good. Too much sugar. You don't want the sugar, you drink diet. I don't have any sugar, I drink diet, right? That's even worse because it's not a food. Your body doesn't recognize it, okay? So aspartame, I don't know if you realize this, was designed by the Department of Defense as a chemical agent. It's a neurotoxin. Neuro means nerve, toxin, poison. It's also the #1 cause of migraine headaches, aspartame. It's stored in your liver. It's never released. It's really toxic. So same thing with Splenda and sucralose, obviously sweet and low, the saccharin, and equal or whatever the other one is. So if you have any of those, throw them out. They're not helping you. Here's what you got to do. If you want something sweet, first of all, use the real thing. It's food. Just don't use a lot of it, You can use raw sugar. You can use honey. You can use agave, molasses, right? Your body recognizes food, and it excretes it as soon as it's done. Second, if you don't want the calories, then use stevia. It's an all-natural, plant-based, zero-calorie sweetener that you excrete as soon as your body's done with it. It's not stored, and it has no side effects. So I'm telling you this because all this affects your nerve system, and we want to heal up your nerve system. Right now it's not in a good place, so we want to get it in a good place. And it's not just about your adjustments. It's about what you're doing when you're not here, okay? So, and obviously the fast food, you see the picture, right? See the picture up here? No, 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 and no. Okay? That's all I need to say. All right. Mental stress. Nobody has any of that these days. When you're under stress, this is probably the biggest thing that brings people in now, and they don't even realize it. When you're under stress, your body goes through an instinct called fight or flight. Okay, you familiar with that? Fight or flight? You know what it means, right? Okay, so tell me what you think it means, Malcolm.
Well, if I'm in a adverse situation, either I'm gonna
there's a threat or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna take off and run, or I'm gonna fight the situation and get through it.
Exactly, fight or flight, right? So here's what happens to your body physiologically on the inside. Think of a cat. When a cat sees a dog, right? Oh man, they're not bringing that for me. Sorry, that was dinner. When a cat sees a dog, what happens? The pupils get really big, the heart rate speeds up, right? The digestive system shuts down so that all the blood flow can go to the extremities to either attack or run. The back goes up and the hair stands on it. Same exact thing happens with us when we are under a perceived threat or stress. And I say perceived because what stresses you out doesn't stress you out. It's all going on up in here. Now, that response is supposed to be there. If the kid runs out in front of your car and you need to slam on the brakes, right? But it's not supposed to be there all the time. And that's what's happening, is we've got our adrenal glands pumping out cortisol all day long and adrenal hormones, and these things are going on. Do you wonder why so many people have gastroesophageal reflux? I mean, there was a time where every new patient coming in was on medication for that, and I'm like, what is this? Is there like an epidemic of it? It's from stress. That's what happens. Your stomach shuts down. So one of the best things your adjustments do when you get it, when your computer freezes up, right? It's locked, frozen. What do you have to do? Right, you got to reboot, hard shutdown, right? That's what your adjustments are doing to your nerve system, because that stress, let's just say you get up in the morning, you watch TV, I call it the Atlanta morning body count, right? You're already stressed out of your mind. Then you get on 285, forget it. You're toast, your day's done. You've already had 10 years worth of stress. You get the picture, and somebody cuts you off and whatever. Then you haven't even gotten to work yet. Now you're at work. So you see, and then you come in here at the end of the night and you're like this, and you don't even realize it, And so you'll notice one of the first things I do when you lay on the table is I feel your shoulders, because I want to see how much stress you got. You'd be amazed at how different your spine feels in the morning than when you come in after work. It's amazing, the total difference. Anyway, so when I give the adjustment, what that's doing is that is releasing that stress, the effects of that stress on your nerve system, it's like a reboot. And here's how you know. Because when you get up, and you're all just getting started, so you still have your aches and pains and stuff. But when you get off that table, your body should feel lighter. There's no other way to explain it. It's just like feels lighter. That's stress leaving your body, and that's a great thing. Because we know what happens when stress accumulates. People do things they're not supposed to do, right? So, why do people have different symptoms when they're under stress, right? Some people have headaches, some people have low back pain, some people get gastroesophageal reflux. Because wherever that nerve is going, if it's being subluxated or irritated, that's what's going to light up when you're under stress. So that's why people have different stress responses. I can tell you one thing that's really, this is my own little survey I've been doing over 35 years in practice, is women tend to hold their stress up here in their neck and shoulders, and men in their lower back. I have no idea why. It's not scientific. It's just what I've found, putting my hands on spines over all these years. So another great thing about your adjustments is that Dr. Sobel back in 1990 found a direct connection between your immune system cells and your neurons. Does that mean it wasn't there in 1989? No, of course not, right? We're finding stuff out all the time that the body is so amazing, intricately connected to everything. So what that means is every time you get adjusted, your immune system gets stimulated. And it helps build resistance. You know what I'm talking about. High resistance, low resistance, right? High resistance is somebody who can fend off invading microorganisms easily because they're all over the place. They're on our skin, they're in the, but we're not sick. Low resistance is somebody who's easily susceptible because their immune system is so compromised. And we've all learned more than we could ever know this year about all that stuff, right? So who doesn't need a strong immune system these days? This is one of the most important things that we do with our adjustments, is help people keep strong immune systems, and that's a gem right in and of itself. Okay, so now we're getting to where we ran your scans. You remember you saw this. You did this when you came in. The reason we do this is because all these nerves here don't feel. Unfortunately, we've been fed the biggest lie ever, and that was, if it doesn't hurt, there's nothing wrong. It's not true. I know for a fact. My dad was feeling fine. Bent over to put his shoes on to go to the company picnic one Sunday morning and never got up. Massive heart attack. Was he fine the day before? Felt fine. You know what I'm saying? You can't go by pain. And as you see now, what happens, pain doesn't come till you're down here. It's been cooking since here. You know what I'm saying? That's why we check people that are asymptomatic. And that's why we do these scans. Because you may have pressure in other parts of your spine where you don't hurt. So we want to look at the whole picture. Your autonomic nerves go to your organs, glands, and blood vessels. Your motor nerves go to your muscles. Just to refresh, anywhere that you see green is a mild nerve stress, blue is moderate, and red is severe. And so as we move forward, is that plant bothering you?
No, I just noticed it moving, that's why.
Oh, you're right over the air conditioning. You want to move your chair? You want me to shut that?
No.
Okay.
If
If you get cold, let me know, because these ladies are always complaining that I freeze them out, and I'm back here like, oh my gosh. Anyway, what was I talking about? The scans. At intervals, we're going to redo your scans. Usually after the first 6 weeks, we're going to run it and take another look at it. I want to see change. Okay, I'm looking for two things right now. One is how easily your spine adjusts. If you've been under care but it's been a long time, you're still stiff. If you've never been under care, we got a lot of work to do. So I try not to use so much force in the beginning. That's why I use the drop tables, because I don't really want to get pounding on you, but I need to move there's a lot of scar tissue in there, so we need to get things moving. So I'm looking for how easily, at each time you come in, things start to adjust. And you'll notice, trust me. The second thing I'm looking for is how long it stays there, how long it holds the adjustment. And once we start to see that, we know the pattern is changing. Remember we talked about your muscles pulling and pulling? We'll see that pattern change. and it'll start to balance itself out, and then we know we're on the right track and everything's clearing out. Okay, but we'll do that at intervals throughout your care, just to keep a check on it, make sure we're moving in the right direction. Okay, so how do you know if you have subluxations? You don't unless you get checked. You know what I'm saying? Because they're asymptomatic. So you got to get checked. That's one of the reasons why, your whole family, by the way, because you're here, gets a complimentary exam. Because you don't have to pay for it. They don't need to use their insurance, because we want to make sure that everybody in your family is clear. If they have subluxation, we'll work on it. If they don't, great. All the better. All right, so almost done here. This is what it looks like on X-ray. And those of you that I've taken X-rays on, I've showed you your X-rays, right? I showed you your X-rays, right? Pretty good. But this is what happens on your thing. You see on the back of, she brought hers, so I'll use yours as an example. On the back of your care plan, you see where it says phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't know if you read that. And here's what those phases mean, okay? That's got all the criteria for those phases. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? These are called phases of degenerative change. This is a phase 1, okay? Phase 1 is birth to 20 years old, typically. Now, what you're looking at here on X-ray is the neck. So you're looking at this part right here, okay? So what that means is the first thing that happens that's where the subluxation just started. The very first thing that happens is the curve straightens out. If you look at the spine from the side, you see that it curves in the neck, out in the middle back, and in the lower back. But from front to back, it does not curve, and it should not curve. If it does curve, what do we call that? Excuse me. You know what that's called? Remember your doctor said that on your X-ray? Scoliosis.
Oh, scoliosis.
Right, scoliosis. So we don't want that. But we can work with that too. We're not going to fix it. But you have pressure in between the curves. We got to get that pressure off. You can live with scoliosis. Okay, anyway. So the first thing that happens is the curve straightens out. Now we get this jamming. That's a phase 1. Totally correctable. There's no permanent damage because I'm looking at the bones. They're nice clean edges, nice square. In between you see the space. That's where the disc is. We know it's there. We can't see it, but we know it's there. So that's phase 1, birth to 20 years old. If we do nothing, we move into phase 2. This is 20 to 40 years now it's been in there. What do you see different here than here? Mm-hmm.
The shape has changed.
Yeah. Shape of the vertebrae is changed. And you see here, that is gone to that. That's your disc. It's cartilage. It's this stuff right here. So what happens, and where I was talking about how it wears, it's like putting tires on your car and not lining up the front end. They're going to wear out sooner than they should. And so it's wearing on that disc, closing down that nerve channel, and that's where we're at. You see the bones? They're not square, are they? They've got points. Here, here, here. That's all osteoarthritis, bone spurs. Because what the brain says, remember I told you that your innate intelligence wants to keep you going at all times? The brain says there's been trauma there, lock it down. So the first thing that happens is the muscles go into spasm, swelling sets up, and you might not even feel it. It might even start out as, man, I got a little crick in my neck. I'm just going to pop a couple Advil and go to bed. The next day, you don't feel it because you just block the pain signal, right? But it's still there, and it's still wearing and wearing and wearing and wearing. And that's what happens. So now we have these bone spurs growing right into the canals where the nerves are. Okay, now if that's not corrected, now we move into phase 3. And what do we see here? Not only this disc, but this one now too. You know why? Law of physics. This is stuck. It's not moving. So the one above and the one below are picking up the slack for your movement. And that's what happens. And look at these bone spurs. This is almost grown totally together. So your spine will naturally fuse if it's been injured enough and not corrected. And then if it goes into phase 4 is when the bones start decaying, and you really can't do anything about that. So we don't want you to get there, okay? But that's what it looks like if we do nothing. You guys are not there because you're doing something, okay? All right. So when we lay out the care plans, this is why we lay it out the way we do. Right now, you're all in active care. We're working on something, okay? My goal is to get you out of pain as quickly as possible, reduce the inflammation as much as possible. You're coming in 2 to 3 times a week because after 24 to 48 hours, like your scans showed, it's going to pull it back out. We're going to do it again, better, better, better. And in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we're going to run those scans again. So that's where you're at right now, is active care. When you get to that once a week, where we start seeing that shift in how easily you adjust and how long you hold, that's that once a week. That's where we call it stabilization. I also call it the danger zone. Why do you think I call it that? The danger zone.
Because you're feeling better and you stop.
Bingo! Give me your hand. High five,
I
Dr.
just know
Cheryl.
me.
That's what you're thinking. Yeah, everybody thinks that way. Trust me. It's who taught us, right? Our parents and our grandparents. Unfortunately, they didn't know any better. They taught us that big lie: nothing's wrong if you don't hurt. So by that time, you are feeling better. You're back to doing the things you weren't able to do before. You are sleeping better. Your energy is up, and you're thinking, "Good job, Dr. C. I'm good. See you when it hurts again." That's what we were taught. Because if you go over there, and I'm not bashing medicine, trust me, we need them. I don't want to do what they do, trust me. I want to keep people healthy. I don't want to bring them back from the dead. You know what I mean? But if you go over there and they're like, "Well, what's wrong?" And you're like, "Nothing." Well, what the heck are you doing here? They have to have something to treat. You know what I mean? You have to have a symptom. So we don't want you to get to that point. Anyway, and it's also because by that time, if you start skipping, it's not fully healed yet. Your pain is the last thing to come, first thing to go away in the healing process. But all that stuff underneath, those muscles, that soft tissue, those discs, those nerves, they all have to heal. And that's what takes the time. It takes up to 2 years for a nerve to heal. That doesn't mean you're coming in here 3 times a week for 2 years. That's how long it takes. And if you're experiencing any kind of numbness or tingling, that nerve's going dead. That's why, it's like that's a warning sign. We got to get that off the nerve. So that's your corrective adjustment plan that you're all on right now. When you complete that, and some people get done earlier, it's not cookie cutter. Some people respond quicker, some people take a little bit longer. Then we talk about maintenance or wellness care. We got the same spine and the same life. We're walking out into the same stress. We got to take care of it. I had a patient ask me a couple of years ago, he said, "Doc, how long do I have to do this for?" And I said, "Well, first of all, you don't have to do anything. It's your life and your health and you're making choices. But second of all, let me ask you something. When are you going to stop brushing your teeth?" And he looked at me like, "What?" And I'm like, "When are you going to stop brushing? Why do you brush your teeth?" "Well, because I want to keep them." And guess what? This is your lifeline back here. It takes a beating. And we don't think about it because it's not on our face. Right? So that's why you got to take care of your spine. Most of my patients that are really active tennis players and have really high stress jobs and things like that, or they're on an airplane on Monday and they come back on Friday, that kind of thing, very stressful, they come in once a week. We've got great plans for everybody to be on wellness. And then everybody else does pretty much every other week is what we recommend if you're on maintenance. And then some people can even come once a month if you're very low stress. I don't know many people like that, but maybe someday I'll get to that point for myself. I get checked every week to 10 days. I'm bent over all day long. So that would be good for you guys. Okay? All right. Well, we were just talking about our parents. And what was our greatest generation, unfortunately, is becoming our nursing home generation. Because their health paradigm was to do nothing. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? They didn't know. They didn't have health food stores on every corner and gyms on every corner. And they didn't have health. They didn't have chiropractors on every corner either. So I want you to adopt the healthcare paradigm for living to 100. Because whether you want to get there or not, you're going to get there.
Sorry. It's gone off.
Not a problem. It's okay. I'm not good with technology either. Don't worry about it. So first is to practice self-care. Self-care is what you do for yourself that only you can do to stay healthy. Give me some examples. What can you do for your spine and nerve system to stay healthy that only you can do? Eat right. Get the bad stuff out, good stuff in. What else? Exercise, exactly. You got
Sleep.
and sleep. Perfect. Man, you guys are on it. You're getting it. Those are the top 3 things, and you drink a lot of water. Yeah, sleep without technology, by the way. They don't understand that. You guys do, okay? But exercise, at this point, usually I get a question, well, what's the best exercise I should be doing? Because everybody wants that magic bullet, right? There is no best exercise. All exercise is good for you. I will say I'm not a big fan of running because of the pounding, but I'll take care of you if you're a runner. I'll keep fixing you. If I had to pick one exercise, I'd have to say swimming. 0 gravity, stretches and strengthens all the core muscles at the same time. It's phenomenal for the spine. Pilates, fantastic. Weight training, really good. Just make sure you're doing it right, you know. And all the other sports are great. Any kind of cardio is really good. Your spine needs movement, and that's the biggest issue as we age, is your body stops moving. And that's when all kinds of things start locking up and getting rigid and getting arthritic and stuff, so we got to keep moving. Yoga, fantastic. Even beginners, some kind of movement. You walk, right? Walking, excellent. Just get outside and walk. Okie dokie? All right, almost done here. I'm going to finish up with this, and then I'm going to tell you a story. I can give you a gift from those are my kids. Remember Maggie when she looked like this? That's my daughter. That's her friend. And I like this picture because I'm skinny in this picture, so I keep that up there. I'm like a real estate agent, right? I'm going to tell you a story about Rocky. This woman in this picture, her name is Rochelle, but she'll kill you if you call her that. Her name, she's always gone by Rocky. Rocky started chiropractic care with me when she was 7 years old. When she came in, her mom brought her in. Her mom actually had a notebook, a binder, so I knew it was not good. She was experiencing about 50 grand mal seizures a day. She had been diagnosed as being mentally retarded, socially retarded, and developmentally retarded. She was still drinking out of a bottle. She was wetting the bed every night. And if you've ever known a challenged child, you know they don't ever look you in the eye. And she would sit in a corner, really not want to be in the room. But her story did not start there. Her story started when her mom was in labor. And Anne is her mom. And this is the orientation, okay? So this is the back of the head. That's what you feel when you run your hand down somebody's back. Here's the chest. Here's the baby, okay? And this is the pelvis. And here's the birth canal. Baby's coming out through here. This is called the pubic symphysis, the pubic bone, right? The symphysis is the cartilage that goes in between here. When Anne was in labor, this fractured. Very painful. So they put her out under general anesthesia, and they took Rocky out with forceps. They do the same thing with the forceps that they do with their hands, okay? So knowing what you know now, where's the first place you think where's the first place I checked on her when she came in? Upper cervical, right, C1, C2. This is what I found. By the way, this is the base of the skull, and there's a hole there. So if your mother ever told you you have a hole in your head, she's right. And that's an old school thing, isn't it? Our parents were sick. It's a miracle we grew up the way we did. Anyway, this is C1, this is C2, right? This is actually the brain stem. And then the rest of the spinal cord starts down there. It's like a big long tail. But from the brain stem, these nerves that come out from here, they loop right back up into the head and they feed the brain. And the brain stem is also responsible for heart rate, respiration rate, balance control, immune system. So anyway, C1 was rotated this way, C2 this way. That's a lot of torque or twisting on the brainstem. So we went to work. For the first, 2 years, I didn't adjust anything but the C1 and C2. Within 2 weeks, her bedwetting stopped. I'm not treating bedwetting. I'm not a bedwetting doctor. I'm not a urologist. I'm adjusting her spine, right? 2.5 months went by. It was right about this time when school was ended, when she was starting, and she was in special ed. So she had to go back to school in August to get tested for her next year. She tested out of special ed and into a regular classroom. This kid's starting to wake up. Now she's still medicating. She had a list of medications like that. She's still medicating and she's still having the seizures, but they're becoming less frequent and less intense. Okay? So we know she's not mentally retarded. She's interacting. 6 months under care, she gets auditions for the school Christmas play and gets the lead Rudolph in the Christmas. This is a kid who was antisocial. She's interacting with the other kids on stage, no less, right? So we know she's not, socially underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. About 9 months or so under care, her mom asked me a question, a lot of patients ask, and she said, do you think we might be able to get her off some of these medications? And I'll tell you what I told her. As a chiropractor, we are the world's largest non-drug, non-surgery healing art in the world. We don't put people on medications, we don't take them off. So I said, talk to your neurologist. I'm happy to work with him or her. And so she did. And guess what the neurologist said? No guesses?
No idea.
Man, you're afraid, aren't you? He said, if you take her off those medications, don't bring her back. I won't treat her.
Jeez.
He wasn't a very nice person.
No.
So she didn't go back. She had support. She went and found another neurologist who was actually intrigued and like, what is going on here? This kid's having changes. So we worked together. So let me give you some highlights. She graduated from, well, before I get there, 2 years under care. She was off all her medications and off all her, not having any more seizures. She'd been seizure free for a while. But you can't go off those meds right away. You gotta titrate off. And one of the docs got a hold of Ann at that point and said, she's gotta be seizing at night. You're just not seeing it. Because in their mind, one's an epileptic, right? So Ann bought into it, put her down at Northside Hospital, hooked up the EEGs, and they gave her strobe lights and video games and all the things to induce a seizure for 2 days in the hospital. And the report came back, 0 seizure activity. Phenomenal. We had a party for her here in the office. Everybody was following her case. So now, let me tell you what happened since then. She graduated from Pebblebrook High School on the High Honors Principals list. She graduated from Columbia, summa cum laude. She got married, obviously. She's in that big flamingo dress there. And look at her, she's living her life, you know. And guess what she does for a living? No. No! I lost her! Because every time I'd adjust her, I'd say, you're going to be a chiropractor. She's a special ed teacher. How appropriate, right? How appropriate. Fantastic. She's also 6th in the world professional compound bow archer. Pretty cool, right? And I'm telling you this, and you know, it's interesting because just before she came in, one of the docs recommended that she be put in a group home. And Ann, thank God, said no. So I'm telling you this because somebody had to tell her. Somebody had to tell me I didn't grow up in a chiropractic family. It just made perfect sense to me when I started looking into it. And her babysitter, Ann, who comes here with her 7 kids, she said to Betty, have you ever thought about chiropractic? This is years and years ago. And she said, chiropractor? She doesn't have any back problems, right? That's what people think. It's not about your back. It's about your lifeline. All right, so we're going to help you pay it forward. Leanne has some goodie bags for you guys. And On the outside, it has a gift certificate for